From slave to galaxy's strongest warrior, the alien woman's incredible journey. Shackles of stardust, the auction block was cold beneath Naira's feet. 3 standard cycles had passed since the raid on Azure, her peaceful homeworld whose violet skies matched her skin. Now she stood among other captives, her wrists bound with energy cuffs that hummed with restraining power. Next up, an Azurean female, announced the auctioneer, a greasy Taurian with too many teeth. Rare specimen. Strong, despite their reputation for pacifism. Bidding starts at 5,000 credits. Naira kept her gaze downcast, hiding the fury that burned in her amber eyes. On Azure, she had been a stellar cartographer, mapping the dance of stars. Now she was merchandise. The crowd of traders, mercenaries, and slavers murmured as the bidding began. Nira's people were known for their intelligence and endurance, making them valuable assets in the lawless outer systems. 20,000, called a gruff voice that silenced the room. Nira looked up despite herself. A broad-shouldered man in black combat armor stood at the back of the crowd. Commander Vex, notorious mercenary leader whose reputation for cruelty reached even peaceful Azure. Sold to Commander Vex, the auctioneer declared, unable to hide his nervousness. Hours later, Naira found herself aboard Vex's ship, the Ravager, assigned to the navigation bay. Her knowledge of stellar cartography made her useful, though the heavy collar around her neck reminded her constantly of her status. Plot a course through the Carillion Nebula, ordered Vex, his breath hot against her neck as he leaned over her workstation. There's a commercial transport we're going to intercept. The nebula disrupts navigation systems, Nira replied quietly. It would be safer to... The back of Vex's hand struck her cheek. Did I ask for alternatives, Azurean? Naira tasted blood but said nothing, her fingers moving across the navigation array. She would survive this. She would escape, somehow. Days blurred into weeks. Naira learned to anticipate Vex's needs, to move invisibly through the ship, to make herself valuable enough to keep but not remarkable enough to notice. She observed the crew, memorizing schedules and security protocols. Knowledge was her only weapon. It happened during a routine raid. The Ravager had just locked onto a small transport vessel when alarm klaxons blared. "We're being boarded," shouted the security officer. "Unknown vessel, portside." Chaos erupted as the ship rocked with explosions. Naira was thrown from her station as the navigation bay filled with smoke. Through watering eyes, she saw the crew scrambling for weapons. The slaves. "Secure the assets," Vex barked as he stormed past, not even glancing at her. In the confusion, Naira slipped away from her station. If she could reach an escape pod during the attack, she rounded a corner and collided with a figure in unfamiliar armor. Not Vex's crew. "The intruder, behind you!" Nira warned instinctively as one of Vex's guards appeared. The stranger spun, firing his weapon with precision. After neutralizing the guard, he turned back to Nira, helmet visor lifting to reveal a human male with intense gray eyes and a scar running along his jaw. "You're not crew," he stated, studying her collar. "I'm property," Naira replied bitterly. Something flickered in the man's expression. Not anymore. He raised his weapon and fired at her collar. The lock mechanism sparked and fell away. "I'm Elian, former Galactic Coalition, now independent. Can you fight?" Naira hesitated. "My people are pacifists." "Then today you learned something new." Elian handed her a small blaster. "Stay close. My ship's docked on level 3. Why help me?" Naira asked, clutching the unfamiliar weapon. Elian's mouth curved slightly. "Let's just say I recognize potential when I see it." Together they navigated the burning corridors of the Ravager, evading Vex's forces. Naira's heart pounded as she followed this stranger into uncertainty. Freedom was a terrifying prospect after captivity. As they reached Elian's ship, a sleek vessel called the Horizon, Vex's voice echoed through the hangar. "The Azurean comes with me." "Intruder," he growled, weapon aimed. Without thinking, Naira raised her blaster and fired. The shot went wide, but it distracted Vex long enough for Elian to take precise aim. Vex fell, clutching his shoulder, his face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this," he spat. "I regret nothing," Nira replied, boarding the Horizon with Elian. As the ship detached and accelerated away from the Ravager, Naira watched the mercenary vessel grow smaller through the viewport. Her hands trembled, but something else stirred within her, a spark of something fierce and unfamiliar. "Where to now?" she asked Elian, who was programming coordinates into the navigation system. First somewhere safe, he replied. Then, if you're willing, I'll teach you to ensure no one ever puts a collar on you again. Nira touched her neck where the collar had been. For the first time since her capture, possibility stretched before her like an uncharted galaxy. Teach me everything, she said. Trust among stars. The horizon hummed quietly as it cruised through the void. Nira stood in the ship's combat chamber, her violet skin gleaming with perspiration as she faced Elian for the third training session that day. Again, he commanded, circling her with practiced grace. Your stance is too narrow. You'll lose balance against a stronger opponent. Nira adjusted her feet, frustration evident in her amber eyes. 2 weeks had passed since her rescue from the Ravager, and patience was wearing thin between them. I was a cartographer, not a warrior, she reminded him, wiping sweat from her brow. Elian's expression remained impassive. And now you're a survivor. Vex won't forget what happened. He's hunting us. With unexpected speed, he lunged forward. Nira reacted instinctively, sidestepping and striking at his exposed side. Her fist connected with solid muscle, and Elian grinned despite himself. Better. Your reflexes are exceptional. Nira stepped back, surprised by the rare compliment. My people evolved as prey species on Azure. We sense danger quickly, even if we traditionally chose flight over fight. Then we'll use that, Elian said, tossing her a metal staff. Your body remembers what your mind doesn't yet know. Days melted into a rhythm of training, navigation lessons, and tense meals shared in the galley. Nira learned that Elian had once been a respected commander in the Galactic Coalition forces before something caused his exile, a topic he skillfully avoided. Whenever she probed, "Why invest so much in training me?" she asked one night as they shared a meal of synthesized protein and the rare luxury of fresh fruits from their last port. Elian's gaze lingered on the viewport where stars streaked by. The Coalition is weakening. The outer systems are falling to warlords like Vex. Someone needs to stand against them. And that someone is me? Nira asked skeptically. That someone could be you, he replied. You have something most trained soldiers lack. Genuine cause. Later that night, Nira couldn't sleep. She wandered to the navigation bay, seeking comfort in the familiar patterns of stars. Her fingers traced constellations on the holomap when the ship suddenly lurched. Proximity alarms blared as Elian rushed in. Hastily dressed. Mercenary scout ship, he reported, sliding into the pilot's seat. Likely Vex's forward reconnaissance. How did they find us? Nira asked, securing herself in the co-pilot's chair. Probably tracked our fuel signature from the last port. Elian's hands flew across the controls. We can outrun them, but not their communication signal. The pursuing vessel fired, rocking the horizon. Warning lights flashed as shields weakened. Take the weapons system, Elian ordered, nodding toward the targeting controls. Nira hesitated. I've never... Trust your instincts. Her hands found the unfamiliar controls. Closing her eyes briefly, she recalled Elian's lessons on ship systems. The targeting interface responded to her touch, and she felt a strange connection to the ship's defenses. When her eyes opened, they held new determination. She tracked the pursuing vessel, anticipated its evasive pattern, and fired. The shot connected, disabling the scout ship's propulsion system. How did you... Elian began, astonishment evident. Stellar cartography requires understanding of vector mathematics, Nira explained, a hint of pride in her voice. Their movement pattern was predictable. Elian's laugh was unexpected, warm and genuine. You're full of surprises, Nira of Azure. The moment lingered between them, something unspoken shifting in the air. Then reality intruded as Elian returned to the controls. They've sent our coordinates to their fleet. We need to disappear. Nira studied the star charts. The Kasari asteroid belt. Dense enough to mask our signature, dangerous enough that few would follow. Elian nodded in approval. Plot the course. As the horizon changed direction, Nira felt something unfamiliar stirring within her. Not just determination to survive, but a will to fight back. The violet-skinned cartographer was fading. Someone new was emerging in her place. That night, as emergency repairs consumed their attention, Nira and Elian worked side by side in the engine room. In the cramped space, their bodies frequently brushed against each other. Each contact sent a different kind of tension through Nira. Hand me the fusion coupler, Elian requested, his voice rough with exertion. As she passed the tool, their fingers touched. Elian's hand lingered on hers a moment longer than necessary. Their eyes met in the dim light, and for a heartbeat they were no longer fugitive and rescuer, just a man and a woman in the vastness of space. Elian broke the moment first, returning to the repairs. But something had shifted between them, fragile as solar glass and just as radiant. "We'll reach a trading outpost tomorrow," he said later as they finished.
Karis Station.
"We can resupply and gather intelligence there. Is it safe?" Naira asked. Elian's smile held little humor. "Nowhere is truly safe for us now. But Karis is neutral territory. Even Vex respects certain boundaries." As they prepared for rest cycle, Naira paused at the door to her quarters. "Elian," she called softly. When he turned, she continued, "Thank you, not just for rescuing me, but for believing I could be more." His expression softened, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath the hardened exterior. "You already are more," he replied simply. The Warrior Awakens Karis Station hung in space like a tarnished jewel, once gleaming, now showing its age. The sprawling trading hub served as neutral ground for a dozen species and twice as many political factions. Nira stood before the mirror in her quarters aboard the Horizon, barely recognizing herself. Gone was the navigation technician's uniform from the Ravager. In its place, she wore fitted combat gear Elian had acquired, dark gray with subtle armor plating that complemented her violet skin. 3 months had transformed her. Lean muscle now defined her arms and torso. Her movements had become fluid, deliberate. The haunted look in her amber eyes had hardened into something resolute. "Ready?" Elian asked from the doorway. Nira nodded, securing a blaster at her hip. The weight of the weapon now felt natural. "Remember, Karis operates on reputation," Elian explained as they prepared to disembark. "Stand tall. Show no weakness. You're not a refugee or a former slave. You're my partner." The word sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. Their relationship had evolved into something unclassifiable, beyond rescuer and rescued, teacher and student, yet not quite naming the electricity that sparked between them during close combat training or late-night navigation lessons. Karis Station's main promenade assaulted their senses, a cacophony of traders, hawking wares, the scent of exotic foods, the press of diverse species navigating the crowded thoroughfare. Naira walked confidently beside Elian, noting how others gave them space. His reputation still carried weight here. "We need information and supplies," Elian murmured. "I have a contact at the Nebula Tavern. Follow my lead and keep your senses alert." The tavern occupied a dim corner of the station's entertainment district. As they entered, conversations halted momentarily before resuming with greater intensity. News traveled quickly in places like this. The exiled coalition commander and his mysterious Azurean companion were worth gossip. A human woman with striking silver hair approached from the bar, her smile genuine but her eyes calculating. "Elian," she greeted warmly, embracing him with familiar ease that sent an irrational surge of jealousy through Nira. "Never expected to see you in coalition space again." "Sienna," he nodded. "The circumstances are compelling." Sienna's gaze shifted to Naira, assessing her with open curiosity. "I see that." Private booth. They followed her to a secluded alcove shielded by sound dampeners. "Vex has placed bounties on both your heads," Sienna informed them without preamble. "Substantial ones. But that's not the interesting part." "What is?" Naira asked, ignoring Elian's warning glance. Sienna's lips curved appreciatively at Naira's directness. "The Galactic Coalition is fracturing. Internal power struggles. Some factions are aligning with mercenary groups like Vex's for security operations. Others are maintaining traditional coalition values." "Civil war?" Elian asked, tension evident in his voice. "Not yet, but soon." Sienna leaned forward. "Your former commander, Thaddeus, leads the traditionalist faction. He's been asking about you." Naira watched emotions war across Elian's usually controlled features. Hope, suspicion, resolve. "And why would that interest me?" he asked carefully. Sienna's laugh was melodic but sharp. "Because exoneration is on the table, Elian. Your name cleared. Your rank restored." The revelation hung in the air between them. Naira felt suddenly adrift. If Elian returned to the coalition, where would that leave her? "At what price?" Elian asked, his voice betraying nothing. "Intelligence. Strategy. Your particular skills. Sienna glanced at Naira. And hers, if the rumors are true. Naira straightened. What rumors? That Elian has been training a warrior of exceptional talent. That you disabled a scout ship with a single shot. That you move like Shadow in combat simulations. Surprise flared in Naira. Their activities had been monitored more closely than they'd realized. Before they could respond, a commotion erupted near the tavern entrance. 4 heavily armed mercenaries pushed through the crowd, scanning faces. Bounty hunters, Sienna hissed. Back exit, now. They slipped through the kitchen and into a maintenance corridor. Sienna pressed a data chip into Elian's hand. Coordinates for a secure meeting with Thaddeus if you're interested. 2 days from now. Shouts echoed behind them as they reached a junction. Go, Sienna urged. I'll misdirect them. Elian hesitated, then pulled Sienna into a quick embrace. Like old times, he murmured. Better company these days, Sienna replied with a meaningful glance at Naira. They parted ways, racing through the station's service tunnels. Naira and Elian had nearly reached their docking bay when 2 mercenaries cut them off. Split up, Elian commanded. Meet at the ship. Naira ducked down a side passage, one pursuer following. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, not of capture but of failure, of returning to chains after tasting freedom. No, she would not go back. The mercenary rounded the corner, weapon raised. Time seemed to slow as Naira's training took over. She noted his stance, his vulnerable points, the overconfidence in his eyes. An Azurian was prey, not predator, or so he thought. She moved with fluid grace, closing distance before he could fire. His first swing missed as she ducked beneath it, striking upward into his solar plexus. As he doubled over, she disarmed him with a technique Elian had drilled into her reflexes. The mercenary staggered back in shock as his own weapon was turned against him. An Azurian? He gasped. You're supposed to be pacifists. Naira's smile was cold. I've evolved. She stunned him with precise aim, then bound and concealed his unconscious form before continuing toward the horizon. Elian was already preparing for departure when she arrived. A fresh wound visible on his arm. You're hurt, she observed, closing the airlock behind her. Flesh wound, he dismissed. Your pursuer? Neutralized, Naira replied, helping him initiate launch sequence. Non-lethally. Something like pride flickered in Elian's eyes. Merciful even now. That's strength, Naira, not weakness. As Karis Station receded behind them, Naira studied Elian's profile. Will you meet with Thaddeus? Return to the Coalition? The question carried weight beyond its words. Elian's hand closed over hers on the navigation controls. Not without you. The simple declaration hung between them. When his eyes met hers, the unspoken tension that had built for months crystallized into something undeniable. Naira moved first, closing the distance between them. Their lips met with the intensity of stars colliding, tentative at first, then with growing certainty. His arms encircled her, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. When they finally parted, breathless, Elian traced the contours of her face with gentle fingers. This complicates things, he murmured. Naira laughed softly. We're fugitives with bounties on our heads caught between warring factions. I think we passed complicated some time ago. As the horizon accelerated into the darkness of space, Naira realized that the warrior awakening within her wasn't forged solely from combat training or survival instinct, but from this, the courage to choose her own path and the strength to love despite uncertainty. Whatever awaited them, coalition politics, Vex's vengeance, or the unknown, they would face it together. Blood and Stardust, the command center of the Coalition outpost Nexus 7 hummed with activity. Officers and analysts moved with purpose around holographic displays, showing troop movements and territory markers. In the center of it all stood Commander Thaddeus, a weathered veteran whose stern face had graced recruitment posters across 100 worlds. Before him, Naira and Elian stood at parade rest, having just completed their report on Vex's operations in the outer systems. Impressive intelligence, Thaddeus acknowledged, studying Naira with undisguised curiosity. Your Azuraean companion has exceptional observational skills, Elian. Naira is my partner, Elian corrected firmly. And yes, she does. 6 months had passed since their escape from Karis Station. 6 months of clandestine meetings with Coalition intelligence, providing information while carefully maintaining their independence. 6 months of Naira's continued evolution as a warrior, her combat skills now complemented by tactical brilliance that even Elian found surprising. 6 months of nights spent in each other's arms, finding solace amid chaos. The Coalition appreciates your assistance, Thaddeus continued, but I need to be clear about something. We're moving against Vex's flagship in 3 days. Operation Sunfall. This intelligence you've provided is the final piece. Elian tensed. You're launching a direct assault on the Ravager? With a joint coalition freelancer task force. I want you leading a strike team. Nira studied the tactical display. The Ravager's defenses have been significantly upgraded since I was aboard. Those shield configurations weren't there before. Thaddeus raised an eyebrow. Can you identify vulnerabilities? 7 potential entry points, Naira replied without hesitation, manipulating the hologram to highlight her targets. But you'll need someone who knows the internal layout. That would be you, Thaddeus observed. Elian shook his head. Absolutely not. Naira isn't officially Coalition. She's not going into combat. I believe that's her decision, Thaddeus countered. Nira placed a calming hand on Elian's arm. I need to be there, she said quietly. This isn't just about Vex anymore. It's about all the others still in chains. The tension between them crackled, visible to everyone in the room. Thaddeus diplomatically excused himself, leaving them alone with the tactical display. It's too dangerous, Elian insisted once they were private. Vex wants you dead more than anyone, which makes me the perfect person to face him, Naira argued. You taught me to fight for a reason, Elian. His expression softened as he drew her close. I taught you to survive. There's a difference, is there? She traced the scar along his jaw, her touch gentle. You survived by fighting for something greater than yourself. Now it's my turn. Later, in their assigned quarters, passion flared between them, more intense than before, fueled by the knowledge of coming danger. Their lovemaking had evolved from tentative exploration to profound connection, each touch an affirmation of life amid uncertainty. Afterward, Elian slept while Naira studied mission parameters on a datapad. Her enhanced night vision, an Azurean evolutionary trait, allowed her to work in darkness while he rested. The plan was sound, but something nagged at her instincts. Vex was cruel but intelligent. The operation seemed too straightforward. She accessed additional intelligence reports, cross-referencing communication patterns and supply movements. A troubling picture emerged. Elian, she whispered, shaking him awake. Something's wrong. Vex is expecting the attack. His eyes snapped open, instantly alert. Show me. Together they pored over the data until dawn, identifying subtle patterns that suggested a trap. When they presented their findings to Thaddeus, his expression grew grave. A mole in our operation, he concluded. But who? We don't have time to find out, Elian replied. We need to adjust the plan. For 2 days they worked with Thaddeus's most trusted officers to modify Operation Sunfall. Nira's insight proved invaluable, not just her knowledge of the Ravager, but her understanding of Vex's psychology. He expects betrayal because betrayal is his nature, she explained. We use that against him. On the eve of the operation, Naira found Elian on the observation deck, staring at the distant stars. Having second thoughts? She asked, joining him by the viewport. About the mission? No. He turned to face her, taking her hands in his. About us? Never. Naira leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. When this is over, she began. When this is over, he continued, we have options. The Coalition has offered me reinstatement, or we could continue independently, or? His eyes held hers. There are peaceful worlds in the verdant sector. Places where a former warrior and a cartographer might find a different kind of life. The possibility hung between them, tantalizing in its normalcy. First we survive tomorrow, Naira whispered. Dawn brought controlled chaos as the task force mobilized. Naira checked her combat gear one final time. The lightweight armor specially designed for her agility. The dual blasters calibrated to her grip, the vibroblade at her hip. Elian approached, leading a squad of 8 elite operatives. Strike Team Alpha is ready. You still sure about this? Naira nodded. Completely. The insertion went exactly as planned until it didn't. Their stealth craft breached the Ravager's perimeter undetected. Nira led them through maintenance tunnels she had once cleaned as a slave, evading security with practiced ease. They reached the primary objective, the the ship's command center ahead of schedule. Then everything went wrong. The doors sealed behind them as they entered an empty bridge. Emergency sirens blared as compartment bulkheads slammed shut throughout the ship, separating their team. "It's a trap," Elian growled, attempting to override the door controls. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the bridge, Vex's sneering face, larger than life. "Welcome back, Azurian," he greeted Naira. "And you brought the famous Commander Elian as a gift. How thoughtful." "Where are you, Vex?" Naira demanded, scanning for surveillance devices. "Safe for the moment, which is more than I can say for your coalition friends. Their attack has been anticipated. External view screens activated, showing coalition vessels under heavy fire from what should have been neutral merchant ships, now revealed as disguised mercenary cruisers. You see, I've made powerful friends since our last encounter," Vex continued. "Friends who appreciate the value of insider information." "Sienna," Elian whispered in realization. "She was your source, among others," Vex confirmed. "Now I have a proposition. Surrender, Elian, and your troops might survive. Resist, and they die. As for my former property," his eyes fixed on Naira, "we have unfinished business." The hologram vanished, replaced by a countdown. 5 minutes until life support would be vented from their compartment. "Options?" Elian asked, already working to disassemble a wall panel. Naira accessed the navigation terminal. "The system's locked down, but—" Her fingers flew across the interface. "There, emergency protocols. If I trigger a cascading failure in the propulsion system, the automated safety systems will unlock all sealed compartments," Elian finished. "Do it." Warning lights flashed as Naira executed the commands. The countdown paused, then reset as bulkheads throughout the ship began to unlock. "We need to reach the auxiliary control room," Naira said. "From there I can disable their weapon systems." They fought their way through corridors now filling with confused mercenary troops. Naira moved with lethal precision, each strike economical and effective. The frightened cartographer was gone. In her place, a warrior whose reputation would soon echo across systems. They reached the auxiliary control room, securing it long enough for Naira to work her sabotage. Coalition forces were regrouping, the tide of battle turning. "Elian, I've almost—" Naira began but stopped at the sight of his face. "What's wrong?" "New transmission from Thaddeus," he said grimly. "Vex is no longer on the Ravager. He took a shuttle when the attack began." "Where?" "Azurai," Elian answered, his expression dark. "He's headed for your homeworld with 3 warships." Naira's blood turned to ice. "This was never about us. It's about resources. Azurian crystals power the most advanced weapon systems, and a pacifist population makes an easy target for enslavement," Elian added. "We need to warn them." As they secured their escape from the Ravager, Naira's mind raced. The peaceful cartographer had become a warrior to survive. Now that warrior needed to become something more to save her people. "Set course for Azurai," she commanded as they boarded their extraction vessel. "And contact every coalition and freelancer ship that will listen. This ends now." Queen of the Void. The violet skies of Azure stretched above crystalline spires and flowing architecture that mimicked natural formations. Unlike the harsh angles of coalition structures or the utilitarian designs of mercenary vessels, Azurean cities celebrated harmony with their environment. In the capital's central plaza, thousands of Azureans gathered, their violet skin in varying shades from pale lavender to deep amethyst. They listened in growing horror as their planetary council received Naira's transmission. "Vex's fleet will reach Azure in 27 hours, Naira explained, her image projected above the assembly. "His intention is conquest and enslavement. You must prepare." Elder Teluse, leader of the council, stepped forward. "Daughter of Azure, we hear your warning, but we remain committed to our ways. Violence is not our path." "Then find another path," Naira urged. "Evacuate the vulnerable. Hide your knowledge in secure archives. Prepare passive defenses." Murmurs spread through the crowd. This violet-skinned warrior with the familiar accent was one of them, yet changed beyond recognition. Stories of her exploits had reached even peaceful Azurai, the slave who became a fighter, the captive who became free. "We have limited defenses," another council member objected. Our shields are designed for meteorological protection, not military assault. Improvise, Naira replied. You're innovators and scientists. Use that brilliance. We're bringing reinforcements, but you must hold until we arrive. The transmission ended, leaving the Azurayans with choices they never imagined facing. Aboard the Horizon, now upgraded and battle-ready, Naira stood on the bridge beside Elian. Behind them followed 12 coalition vessels and a makeshift fleet of freelancer ships, all who had answered their desperate call. Not enough, Elian assessed grimly, studying tactical displays. Vex has 3 warships and superior firepower. Naira's expression remained resolute. We have something he doesn't. What's that? A cause worth dying for, she answered simply. And me. Their relationship had deepened through fire and danger, transforming into a partnership of equals. Where once Elian had been teacher and Naira student, now they moved in perfect synchronization, each complementing the other's strengths. Your plan is insane, Elian said, but his tone held admiration rather than criticism. That's why it will work, Naira replied with confidence that belied her inner turmoil. Hours later, as they approached Azurayan space, long-range scanners detected Vex's fleet already in orbit. The attack had begun ahead of schedule. Planetary shields holding at 60%, reported their communications officer. The Azurayans have implemented some kind of crystal resonance technology to strengthen their defenses. Naira smiled, despite the danger. They found another path. Incoming transmission from the enemy flagship, another officer announced. Vex's face appeared on screen, his expression triumphant. Ah, the rescue party arrives. Too late, I'm afraid. Your precious homeworld will be mine within hours. You're mistaken, Vex, Naira replied calmly. Nothing here will ever be yours. Something in her tone must have unsettled him, for his smug expression faltered briefly. Bold words from the slave who fled. I'm not fleeing now, Naira countered. In fact, I'm coming directly to you. The transmission ended at her signal. Elian touched her arm, his concern evident. You don't have to do this alone, he reminded her. I'm never alone anymore, she replied, resting her forehead against his briefly. But this part of the plan requires one person, not two. The battle erupted as their fleet engaged Vex's forces. Coalition vessels targeted the warship's weapon systems, while freelancer ships ran interference, creating the chaotic conditions Naira needed. In a small stealth craft, she navigated the firefight with preternatural skill, her Azurayan reflexes guiding her through impossibly narrow gaps between laser fire and debris. Approach vector clear, Elian's voice confirmed through her communicator. Breaching point in sight. Naira guided her craft toward an emergency airlock on Vex's flagship, a vulnerability she remembered from her time aboard the Ravager. As she prepared to dock, memories flooded back. The auction block, the collar, the humiliation. She embraced the memories, drawing strength from how far she had come. The docking was seamless, her entry undetected amid the ship's battle alerts. Moving through familiar corridors, Naira neutralized security personnel with efficient precision, never using lethal force unless absolutely necessary. The bridge is sealed, Elian informed her through the secure channel. Vex has locked himself in with his command staff. Exactly as expected, Naira replied, reaching an auxiliary maintenance shaft. Initiating Phase 2. Meanwhile, above Azurai, the battle reached a critical phase. The Coalition fleet had disabled one warship, but suffered heavy losses. The planetary shields were failing under concentrated bombardment. On the surface, Azurayans weren't standing idle. Following Naira's advice, they had converted their scientific instruments into disruption arrays that interfered with targeting systems. Crystal formations around major population centers had been adapted to absorb and disperse energy weapons. Not warriors, but survivors nonetheless. On Vex's flagship, alerts blared as systems began failing in sequence, life support fluctuating, artificial gravity destabilizing, weapon systems cycling through random targets. What's happening? Vex demanded of his increasingly panicked crew. Some kind of virus in the system, a technician reported. It's bypassing all our security protocols. Impossible, unless... Vex's eyes narrowed in sudden understanding. Lock. Down all maintenance access points, she's here. Too late. The bridge doors slid open, revealing Naira. She entered calmly, dual blasters aimed with unwavering precision. Your crew has evacuated to emergency pods, she informed him. It's just us now, Vex. The mercenary leader backed away, drawing his own weapon. You think you've won? Even if you kill me, others will rise to take my place. I don't intend to kill you, Naira replied evenly. Death is too simple. With lightning reflexes, she disarmed him, forcing him to his knees with a precise strike. From her belt, she produced a familiar object, a control collar like the one he had placed on her. Poetic, don't you think? She asked, securing it around his neck. Fear flashed across Vex's features. You wouldn't. I would, she corrected him. But I choose not to. She tossed the activation key aside. Unlike you, I understand that true power lies in choosing mercy when vengeance is possible. Securing him with restraints, Naira accessed the command console. Within minutes, she had transmitted stand-down codes to the remaining warships and opened a channel to both fleets. Commander Vex has been captured, she announced. His forces are ordered to cease fire and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. From the horizon, Elian coordinated the surrender and containment of mercenary crews. Coalition vessels moved into position around the disabled warships as freelancer ships formed a protective perimeter around Azurai. Hours later, as Vex was transferred to Coalition custody, Naira stood on the surface of her homeworld for the first time since her capture. The violet sky welcomed her home, but she was no longer the person who had left. Elder Talisi approached, studying her with wise eyes. You have walked a difficult path, daughter of Azurai. A necessary one, Nira replied. Perhaps. The elder gestured to the gathered Azuraians. Your actions have saved countless lives, but they have also changed us. Some of our youth speak of learning to defend themselves, of following your example. Is that so terrible? Naira asked. Peace through choice rather than inability? It is a new path, Talisi conceded. One we must consider carefully. Elian joined them, respectfully keeping distance from the ceremonial gathering. Nira extended her hand to him, bringing him forward. This is Elian, she introduced. Without him, I would not have found my strength. You always had strength, Elian corrected gently. I just helped you recognize it. In the days that followed, representatives from the coalition arrived to discuss formal protection agreements with Azurai. Nira served as intermediary, helping her people navigate this new relationship while ensuring their unique culture remained respected. Word spread quickly through nearby systems, the story of the slave who became a warrior who then saved her world, the violet warrior who defeated Vex. Embellishments grew with each retelling, but the essential truth remained. One evening, Naira and Elian stood on a crystal observation platform overlooking the capital city. Reconstruction had begun where Vex's initial strikes had damaged structures. Thaddeus has offered me permanent reinstatement, Elian mentioned, with command of a peacekeeping fleet in this sector. Naira considered this. Would you accept? Only under certain conditions. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Partnership, equal rank and authority, and the freedom to maintain ties here. Ambitious demands, she noted with a smile. I learned from the best. His expression grew serious. What do you want, Nira? After everything? She gazed across her homeworld, then to the stars beyond. Balance. To remember my roots while embracing what I've become. To help others find their strength without losing their compassion. And us? He asked softly. I